Welcome to Mom Boss Central. I'm your host, Alexia Hoffman. This podcast is where entrepreneurial moms like you and me come together for real and raw conversations filled with practical tips, genuine stories, and a whole lot of girl power. But it's not just about listening, it's about building a community. If you haven't already, make sure to join at mombosscentral.com. So whether you're sipping on a cup of coffee, pouring yourself a glass of wine, or tuning in on the go, get ready to join the conversation and become part of our supportive Mom Boss Central community. All right, I'm here with Alicia Lyons. We are so happy to have you on the show, Alicia. Welcome. For someone who doesn't know you, can you give a brief introduction of who you are and what you do?
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. So I'm Alicia Lyons, and I'm the mom support coach. And I help moms release their guilt and increase the peace in their life.
I love it. Can you tell us a little bit about your family life and how your kids and business have overlapped?
Sure. So I have a 12-year-old son. I became self-employed before he was even conceived, but I didn't always know that I wanted to be a mom, but I did know that if I became a mom, I would want to be a stay-at-home mom. And so I started I don't know why there's like hair trying to go in my mouth. I started a home-based business 13 years ago, and a couple of years later, I got into this coaching world, and I just fell in love. I also split from my son's dad when he was a little over a year old. I met my fiance when my son was 4, and we've been together for 8 years. So together we're just building the dream.
I love it. That is so great. So with mom guilt, how did you start coaching on that? And we'll start there. How did you get into that space? Because I think it's important.
Absolutely. So it's like, how do I tell the story again? So when I was this home-based business, I became a leader in the company. And when I went through my divorce, I went into like this pit of despair, because literally everything that I had built my identity around was stripped away within a 6-month period. So I was a wife, I was a military wife, I was a leader in this company, driving a freight car, and I was a mom, and one by one, divorce, which led me to stop working, which led me to not having that car anymore, which led to not being a leader in the company. And then my son started exhibiting these weird behavioral things that I'd never seen, because I wasn't really around children before I had my son, or I had avoided children like the plague for 10 years, which is more accurate. And so I didn't understand why he was doing the things that he was doing. And so I felt like a bad mom. And so all of these things that I had identified with were gone. And I eventually I ran across this coach that helped people in this business that I was in. And I joined a program because he sent an email saying, "I wish you more pain." And pain was an acronym, because we basically, when we're in pain, we have the opportunity to grow. So the subject pissed me off enough to click the email.
So funny. It was, the clickbait.
It worked. It was designed to work, and I know several people in the community that email really affected. So anyway, I went to this year-long course to help have success and fulfillment in this business, where I was 100% focused on the success. And I was like, well, what is this F word, fulfillment? Who cares about that?
Yeah.
And I hired a coach, and about a little less than a year into coaching, I had gone through a guilt and shame exercise with my coach, and which kind of alerted me to this thing, this concept of guilt, just guilt in general, not, mom guilt specifically. But I remember going to a doctor's appointment with my son, and something happened in the doctor's appointment that I got really triggered and I left. And that's not normal behavior for me. And so when I left, I started analyzing my behavior because I'd been in the work at this point for a little while. And I thought, okay, something's not right. I think I might feel guilty about this. And I texted my coach, mostly for accountability, because I know how my brain works, where it's like it'll give me a little glimpse into what's going on and then it'll like hide it again from me.
Yeah.
So I went to this certification program where my coach was there, and she was going to do a demonstration of guilt and shame. And so she's going around the room, who's got guilt? And everybody's hand except mine went up because I'd already forgotten. I'm like, it wasn't on purpose. I had already forgotten that I had said that.
Yeah.
So everybody's going around the circle and telling what they're feeling guilty about. And then it clicked in my hand, and I raised my hand and I said, I let someone hurt my son. Because 4 years earlier, I had left my son with a babysitter and she was inappropriate with him. And I went through all the motions. Like, I jumped into action, like, okay, I got to do something. So I called the police and filed a police report. I called Child Protective Services because in my worldview, a 13-year-old girl doesn't do that.
Yeah.
Unless it's been done to her.
Yeah.
Nothing happened. Nothing came from either of those things because the family denied it. There was no proof. He's a 4-year-old, so why would we believe what a 4-year-old's saying? And that was the end of that. And so I didn't have anywhere, like, I never dealt with the feelings. I didn't have anything. There was no justice for him. So I got angry. And a lot of times women are told we're not allowed to be angry. And so I went inward with it.
Yeah.
And started beating myself up for letting this happen, for letting somebody hurt my son.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
When we walked through this exercise, when I said that, I like watched her body just kind of like she almost fell over. And after we went through this exercise, I went home and I started interviewing moms because I always knew I wanted to coach moms. I didn't know what I wanted to coach them on, but I always knew that I wanted to coach moms. And I just started seeing guilt everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And so at the time, I had more certainty in my writing skills than I did in my speaking skills. And so I wrote a book from the interviews that I was doing with moms.
Wow, how cool. That's great.
Yeah.
So that's how you got into the mom guilt. And since you got into that space, what tips do you have? I mean, I know that's a broad question, but for somebody who is struggling with mom guilt in the capacity of maybe working too much, and, for entrepreneurial moms, at least, that's something that I have struggled with, is the guilt of how do I balance the work and the life and the kids and personal life and spouses, and not doing enough for everyone, including myself, right? What advice do you have for someone struggling with that?
Like you said, it is a very broad question, but what I know to be true of women, moms, but women in general, but especially moms and entrepreneurial moms, we have a tendency to want to and try to do it all. And the reality is that nobody can do it all. I remember watching a TikTok, somebody sent it to me, and I was like, this is amazing. It was Shonda Rhimes, who's one of the writers for Grey's Anatomy, I believe. And she said, I'm going to give you a secret on how I do it all. I don't. She has help. And that's probably the biggest thing that we don't do, is we don't ask for help. And I don't know that, and some of it could be connected to guilt.
Yeah.
Because maybe I watched my mom do everything, cooking, cleaning, going to work, raising 4 kids. Like I watched her do it all.
Mm-hmm.
And so if that's our example, we think that that's what we're supposed to do.
Yeah.
But I also know that my mom had a lot of stress and was very unhappy in her role of doing it all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And if you're single and an entrepreneur, like
Yeah.
what are you gonna do? And that's when you got to find your community, and you got to find help, and you got to understand it's okay for someone else to watch your kids.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's okay for someone else to do your social media.
Yes, exactly.
It's okay for someone else to do your paperwork. Like
Yep.
whatever it is that I had a coach walk me through this process. Take everything that you're doing in a day and write it down. Write down every single thing and then rank it on a scale of I love this
Mm-hmm.
to I hate this.
Yes. Yes. That's
Right?
so good. Yeah.
Get rid of the things, delegate, delete, delegate, delay.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so good too. Wow. I haven't heard that. That's really good. Yeah.
The things that you don't like, and look at the things that you're doing, and are especially if it's in your business, are they income producing activities?
Mm-hmm.
If they're not income producing activities, they don't need to be done by you.
Yeah. Seriously. It's so interesting to hear you say that, because I think it's so easy in business for us to say, oh, I can delegate out, right? Like, hiring an assistant or a virtual assistant or someone to help with social media. Like all of that feels, at least for me and the world that I'm in, it doesn't feel like a bad thing, right? Nobody says, oh my gosh, you have an assistant, you're bad at your job. Typically, right? If someone has an assistant, it's because they've done their job well and they need help, and that's the logical next step. However, when it comes to being a mom, when we talk about hiring a nanny, or we talk about, for me, a housekeeper or somebody to do certain things, whatever it may be with my kids, I think there is shame tied around that. And I think that's so interesting when you think about ranking it, like your laundry, right? Like you're not a better mom for doing all the laundry all the time, especially if you hate it. Like, so why do we look at those home tasks that aren't impacting our kids at all in a different light than we look at hiring an assistant? That's so interesting to me.
Yeah. Yeah. And what I see a lot of now, less in the 80s when I was growing up, parents had no problems giving their kids chores to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel like that's happening a lot less now. And I actually saw a statistic that said that kids that have chores and have dinner with their families, the children are less likely to go on drugs later on in life and join gangs and all of that kind of stuff. And I don't know that it specifically has to do with sitting down to dinner and chores. Mm-hmm. But what those two things signify is involved parents.
Yeah. Yep.
So how can you be involved with your kids while teaching them life lessons? Think about, if you have a son, which I do, I think about his future wife a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
How do I want him to treat her? Do I want him thinking that she's going to do all the cooking, cleaning, folding laundry all by herself? Or do I want her to know, or do I want him to know that it's a collaborative process?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. That's so interesting too, because I grew up where my mom worked and we had a nanny, and we had, my mom didn't cook or, do any of that, but my husband's mom did everything. I mean, she cooked every meal. She cooked every lunch. They had kids over from school at lunch. They didn't have a housekeeper, right? That was her full-time passion, and she loved it and she was great at it. However, when my husband and I got married and had kids, and I said, we spoke about it before we had kids, but I'm hiring, even before we had kids, we had a housekeeper who would come in because we have 3 hairy dogs. And I didn't think there was anything wrong with that. I was like, yeah, I'm I had a housekeeper even as a single person, because I had dogs. I mean, it wasn't as often, right? It was once a month or whatever it may be, but that was something I was like, I don't get joy from cleaning. I'm not good at cleaning. So why wouldn't I have someone come in? I didn't think there was anything wrong with it. And my husband was baffled by the idea of having someone come in and clean our bathrooms and mop our floors. Like, to him, that was just so foreign because of how he was raised. He just expected and saw his mom doing that. And so that was something that we definitely had a lot of conversations about. And obviously his perception has shifted since we've been married, but even his interactions with the people that help us with our laundry and help us with our kids, is his view on that has changed so much, because what he originally thought from how he was raised to how we incorporate it with in our family, with me as an entrepreneur and him as an entrepreneur, is just a shift. It's different, it's new. And I think that if you don't have those conversations, it's so easy to get stuck in a mindset of what you saw when you grow up instead of what makes sense for your current life.
Yeah. And I think that that's a big reason why relationships struggle, is because those kinds of conversations don't get had, and they don't have, that, and I don't want it to sound like there's a blame there, but like there's not an understanding of what our childhood was like, and then how do we want to come together and create something that works for both of us. It just turns into a fight when it's like, your husband could have just resented you for paying a housekeeper instead of saying or having discussions about it.
Yeah, definitely. And I think another piece of that is the continued conversations that we have, because there are things that we have to make adjustments. So my mom didn't really cook, and that was something that I didn't know any different. I was an only child. We ate a lot of takeout. It was fine. And like not unhealthy takeout. But anyway, that's beyond the point. But for me, cooking has never been something that I am good at or have enjoyed doing or have spent time trying to learn. However, my husband has told me fairly recently, I mean, like, cooking is important to him. So although I can delegate a lot of things and I buy the Costco meals that are easy to put in the oven and those are great, cooking is something that I do need to spend time to prioritize because that's important to him. And I think if we never had that conversation, we very well could have gotten a place in 5 years or 10 years. He might have been resentful because that's not something that I ever would have prioritized had he not said that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm with you. My mom cooked every day. But like the energy that she cooked with was not like, she hated it. She absolutely hated cooking. And like I enjoy crock pot meals. And why? Because my mom enjoyed crock pot meals.
Yeah.
They're easy.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So what would you say, like, what advice do you have for someone who's trying to juggle doing all the things? I mean, obviously we discussed that we can't do it all, and it's important to try to delegate where you can. But for somebody who maybe isn't able to delegate, or the things that they're still juggling, I mean, I delegate a lot of stuff and I'm still juggling a lot. So what advice do you have for those moms?
Yeah. I think that depending on what we're juggling, again, it goes back to, is it something that brings you joy? Mm-hmm. And if it doesn't, but you are the one that has to do it because there's no other option, how can you reframe it?
Yeah.
How can you turn it into something? And I'll tell you what, I enjoy doing the laundry and I enjoy doing the dishes. For me, time is a big thing. Like, time wasters are alarm bells are going off. Like, I'm wasting time. Like, nothing triggers me more like wasting time.
Yeah.
And so, but when my fiance and I got together and moved in, like, we decided that these daily tasks are mine, and the more weekly tasks, like I don't want to clean the toilet. He cleans the toilet once a week, and that's his job. Like we discussed what jobs we wanted to have, and I chose daily, like laundry and the dishes.
Yeah.
And so I started timing. How long does it take to do the dishes? It takes 5 minutes in and out of the dishwasher.
Okay.
Like I put something in the microwave and hit 5 minutes, and I'll be done before it's done.
Okay.
So it's really quick for me.
Yeah.
I would feel a lot more resentment if I didn't have a dishwasher. I'm just saying.
Yeah. I can relate to that.
Every time my dishwasher goes out, which is more frequent than I care to admit, I mean, it's happened 3 or 4 times in the last 5 years. But when it happens, I'm really, really grateful for that dishwasher when it comes back online.
Yeah, definitely.
But the laundry, like, same thing. I can throw a load in, put a load in the dryer, and I have a load and that's ready to be folded. The folding takes less than minutes.
Yeah.
So it's all going to depend on you, and it's going to depend on what excites you and what gets you motivated. But like when I learned about gamifying your life, how can you make it fun? What is something that you can do to make it fun? Beating the 5-minute time clock is fun for me.
Yeah, that's so funny. Yeah, I love that.
Yep.
That's a great idea.
Yep.
Awesome. So what else are you doing in your life that has helped you kind of find that joy and fulfillment that we talked about?
Asking me hard questions. Let's see. Another thing that really helps just have a lot of joy in your life is to find ways to be grateful. Like I'm pretty sure that when I was talking about the dishwasher, I was talking about how grateful I am that the dishwasher exists. I live in a house that was built in 1950, and during the winter time, it's freezing, and during the summer, it's expensive it's expensive in the summer and winter because the air conditioner, the cool air just goes right on out. The heater just goes right on out. So it's expensive to heat and cool this house.
Yeah.
When I focused on that, I wanted to move. I hated living here. It was awful. And so that was dragging me down. And so I started thinking, like, what can I be grateful about for this house? And I have a list of the things that I'm grateful for. So whenever I'm like mad that my feet are cold right now, my feet are cold, but I'm not mad about it. It's like, I just remember about the things that I'm grateful for, because I could live in a much smaller house. You know, I could live with noisy neighbors. You know, there's always something that we can be grateful for. And the thing about a gratitude practice that I love is that it's actually, the more that you focus on what you can be grateful for, the more things that you're going to find to be grateful for. Yes,
that's so true. That is true.
Are you familiar with the reticulative activated system, the RAS?
No, I don't think I am.
It's the thing that, like, when somebody says, look for a yellow bug, and you start finding yellow beetles everywhere, right?
Yes.
That bug. So your brain is wired to find things that you tell it are important. So when you buy a new car, you've now told your mind that type of car is important to you, and that's why you start seeing it everywhere.
Okay.
If you start doing a gratitude practice, you're telling your brain, I want to see things that make me grateful, and you're going to start seeing more things that make you grateful.
Yeah, definitely. That makes a lot of sense. I think that's, I haven't heard those two intertwined. So that's kind of a fun fact about it, or a fun perspective to keep in mind, because sometimes it can feel so overwhelming to like start a new practice, or to, if it's sitting down and writing it out, it can feel difficult to do that. But if you're just being observant, not necessarily writing everything down or spending set hours or minutes during the day on it, that could be a way to improve it. So I think that's a good tangible tip for people listening as well, that just to be aware and conscious of it, and tell your brain that that's what's important, and it becomes easier to do. Definitely. So for you, as you transitioned and you've run your business while you've been a mom and, gone through different seasons, have you had any specific struggles that you've overcome, being a coach, especially in the space and firsthand experiencing, um, maybe it's mom guilt, maybe it's a lack of peace in your life. What struggles have you kind of overcome and how have you done that?
I'd say that mom guilt was the biggest thing. And I recognized through just observing and then specifically asking moms, like, what are the things that steal your peace? Um, and I've come up with 5 categories of things that can either increase or decrease your peace, respectively. So the pertinent people in our life are, those are that are on the top priority. So usually the people that we live with or interact with on a daily basis. Our emotions, the ability or lack thereof to control them and or understand them, our assets, our physical space,
Okay.
the chaos,
Okay.
which is what we've been talking about, like,
Yeah.
having too much on our plate, overscheduling ourselves or our kids, and exhaustion, which is basically self-care.
Yeah.
When we can be at like a 7 or above in each of those categories, we feel a lot more peace. When we're below 7 on a scale of 1 to 10,
Yeah.
we're going to have a lot less peace.
Wow. Yeah, that's so good. Will you run through them one more time, what each letter stands for people
Sure.
listening?
Yeah. So people, emotions, assets, chaos, and exhaustion.
Wow, that is so good. I feel like it makes perfect sense. Of course, right? Like if we're below 7, no wonder we don't have peace in our life. So how do you say people, if someone is below a 7, I know it's specific for each different category, but if someone feels like they're maybe lower on the scale in multiple categories, how do you get started?
So one thing that we like to do I'll go through peace assessments with people. So I'll ask them on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being where you'd ultimately like to be, 1 being the opposite of that. Where would you rank yourself? Where would you rank yourself with the pertinent people in your life?
I guess where I'd ideally like to be versus where I am now, I would say a 9. I'm happy with my people.
Perfect. So how about your emotional expression?
I would give that an 8. I feel good there.
Awesome. And the assets, so your physical surroundings.
So I would say that one's lower, maybe like a 6. I have a newborn right now, so the clutter in my house is kind of my countertops and my tables, my dining room has turned into like a storage space, and that kind of drives me nuts.
Yeah, I feel you on that. We had a birthday party, and there's stuff hanging out behind me. And how about the chaos?
I feel like the chaos is one that if you would have asked me a few weeks ago, I probably would have given it a low number, and I would say right now I'm right around that 7. Just because I'm in the newborn season and I'm really loving, I think finding really pouring into the Mom Boss Central community has been like such a passion, and hitting and figuring out what that looked like has been literally years in the works. And so to finally like figure out exactly where I'm going and having that clarity, I feel really good about that part of it. So I think that's why I feel good, but there's these other categories of my chaos that make it, not quite a 10.
Okay. And then your self-care, your exhaustion, where would you rank yourself?
That is low. I would say that is probably like a 4 right now, maybe a 3.
Okay, so let's take your lowest. And so you're a 3 right now.
Yep.
So number 1, why so high?
Why is
What are you what are you doing right? What, because it could be a 0, right?
Yeah.
So it could be a 0. So what are you doing right?
Yeah, I think doing this podcast and talking to all these different mom bosses and like hearing firsthand like all these tangible tips, I think that helps. And I think I have created space in having a young baby, 2 months, not even 2 months old, right? To go out and get my nails done and do those things, even though I'm bringing her with me, that has helped. And then starting to ask for more help with her has also been something that makes me feel better.
Perfect. So what would you need to do to increase from a 3 to a 4?
Well, I've been really thinking about getting back on my Peloton. I've been wanting
Okay.
to ride my bike and exercise.
Okay. And how long and for how many times a week would it take for you to get from a 3 to a 4?
I think if I did it once a week, I would go from a 3 to a 4. In a perfect world, I would do it probably like 4 times a week again, but to get to a 4, if I just did it once a week, I would feel pretty good.
And for how long once a week?
30 minutes, one class with Cody.
Perfect. So is there a time in your schedule right now that you could look at your calendar in the next 7 days and find 30 minutes to put on your calendar?
There sure should be. I think so.
Okay. So we're on a podcast. If we were on a coaching call, I would say get out your calendar and find that time. But in the next 24 hours, can you commit to finding that 30 minutes somewhere in the next 7 days?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Perfect.
Yeah. I love that. That's so good.
Yeah. So this is what I do on a peace assessment. This is a condensed version, obviously.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's something that you can do for yourself. But a lot of times we don't see our own blind spots. And so having somebody on the outside, like you might have known, it might have been in the back of your head, like, oh, I wish I could get back on my Peloton. But now I've just got a verbal commitment from you that you're going to find that 30 minutes in the next 24 hours for you to put it on your calendar.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think a huge part of what you did that was helpful was I just needed to get from a 3 to a 4, because I think for me, I've been trying to say like, okay, how can I get up at 5 a.m. to do the Peloton before my twins wake up, in between feedings, when the baby's going to cooperate, and I want to do it 3 days a week. And if I missed one day, like, that's kind of what my head does is like, okay, how can I go from a 3 to a 7, not a 3 to a 4? So I think to hear you ask that question, how could I go from a 3 to a 4, really helped manage my expectations around, one, what was doable, but two, to make some improvement instead of not doing anything because I can't make as much improvement as I want to do.
Right. And the other part that is really impactful about ranking it is that before I asked you why so high, your brain was saying, look at all the things that I'm not doing from 3 to a 10.
Yeah, definitely.
Look at all that I'm doing so that I'm not a 0.
Yeah, when you asked me that, I was like, maybe I should be higher than a 3. I've kind of been doing a lot for myself.
There's that too. And like, I'm the queen of not acknowledging the stuff that I do.
Yeah.
I wear that.
So interesting. Yeah. And I think too, like you said, it's like the spirit in which you do a lot of it too can shape it. So like, even though I'm doing that stuff for myself, but if I'm not actually taking the time to enjoy it as my time, then it kind of falls to the wayside. And I don't put it in the category of self-care because, I felt guilty for doing it, or, I had my baby with me. Like that's been the theme, is like, I'm doing it, but I have my baby with me. So I'm rushing from feeding to the next feeding and timing it. But like, if I would just enjoy it while I'm there, I think I would put it in that category a lot quicker than by not mentally putting it there.
Right. And I can actually think of, there's an opportunity for gratitude there too.
Yeah.
If,
Yeah, definitely.
you could be in a situation, where you couldn't get your nails done at all, or, and this is this could sound like shaming. It's not. But you could be unable to get your nails done at all, or you could be in a situation where your daughter or son, I think you said daughter.
Yeah, daughter.
Isn't with you.
Yeah.
Meaning at all. Like she could be at daycare. She could be like, and if you need that, that's another opportunity for you to say, hey, friend,
Yeah.
you have a new baby too. I'll take your baby while you get your nails done if you'll take my baby while I get my nails done.
Yeah.
That's where community and creating our own village is huge, and that's something that we're not doing enough of.
Yeah, definitely. I agree 100%. And that's why I'm so grateful to have you as part of this community. I think this conversation has been so helpful. And for anybody listening that wants to dig deeper into anything that we talked about today, but that peace assessment being one, or have been struggling with mom guilt, where can they find you and how can they connect with you?
Super easy to schedule a peace assessment. It's on my website, alicialyons.com/peace, PEACE. And I'm at Mom Support Corner on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok.
Okay.
YouTube.
Yeah. We'll have it linked. We'll have it linked in the show notes below. But for somebody who wants to learn more about what you're teaching, obviously you said you have that peace assessment on your website, but do you have anything else? What do you offer, and what could they kind of look for if they're connecting with you?
Yeah. So I do one-on-one coaching, and usually 3, 6, or a year long to do. I also do single appointments if you're like, I'm in an emergency. My book is called Good Mom Rules, Ditch Mom Guilt and Find Your Happy. And it's available on Amazon Kindle. I'm working on getting the auditory, since I'm an auditory learner myself.
Yeah, that's great. Well, thank you so much, Alicia, for your time. We're so happy to have you part of the Mom Boss Central community. And I look forward to hearing about how many moms get to apply the peace assessment to their lives and work on improving things, at least one number at a time.
Awesome. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for joining us on this episode of Mom Boss Central. I hope you found inspiration, encouragement, and maybe even a few new strategies to rock your mom boss journey. Remember, you're not alone. We're all in this together. And don't forget to share the love with your fellow mom bosses. Make sure to join the community at mombosscentral.com. It's completely free and a space to connect with like-minded women. All you have to do is sign up and start connecting. Until next time, keep pursuing your passions and living authentically. We're so happy to have you as part of the Mom Boss Central community.